look at like what's called a polarity, right? So the law of polarity basically states that there can't be one without the other. It means there's an opposite to everything. Positive, negative, left and right, up and down, hot and cold, moon and sun. You know, everything has opposite to it. And one of these is as a fear and faith polarity. So we're not talking about religious faith in this example. We're talking about the faith of an investment, meaning you took a risk. Did the desired outcome come about? So if you look at this on like a 50-50 opposite bipolar side of things, right? Faith is over here. Fear is over here. The first thing that they have in common is they're not real. They're both future expectations of an outcome that we want or don't want to happen. The risk is in the middle, meaning do we pull the trigger? Do we spend money on marketing? Do we start a business? Do we ask the girl out? So faith is on one side, fear is on the other side. If the risk is too high in your mind, you will procrastinate, you won't take action, meaning if you're scared the girl's going to say no, you're not going to go ask her out, right? Or if you're scared that starting a business isn't going to work out, you're not going to do it. But if the faith is high enough, it'll push you past the risk. So here's the thing that you need to understand. The thoughts that you think in your mind trigger the emotions in your body, but it has nothing to do with reality. So for example, what if I called Kobe right now in this example I gave at the shareholder speech and said, unfortunately, Kobe, your mother's passed away. She was in a car wreck. You need to come down to the here and identify the body. As horrible as that sounds. Now, he doesn't know that it's not real at the time. He thinks I'm a police officer calling him, right? Guess what's going to happen? He's going to emotionally involve himself in the thought, right? The thought came in, mother's dead. Emotional involvement, breaking down, crying. Actual physical involvement in the body reacting, right? Well, guess what happens? If I call him back and say, actually, I had the wrong number, your mother's fine. Okay, so she was never dead. But the reaction in his body was as if she was, based off information or thought. So what this should tell you guys is how important your thinking is. Your thinking, if it's accurate or inaccurate, has no relationship to what it does as far as your emotional state. And most of you are driving yourself freaking nuts all the time because you're believing things in the world that are not actually real. And what a lot of people do is Kobe is they use what's called confirmation bias, which is they take information that's spotty in the world and to confirm their own belief in the world, they're going to have a bias towards their own belief system. So they're going to take limited information on the news or from something, and they're going to create a narrative around it to confirm their own story, if that makes sense, right? So it's so important to understand that we can create our own future with our thoughts, but if our thoughts are inaccurate, it's creating a wrong emotion in our body. And if we feel that in our body, it creates the wrong attitude, and a wrong attitude either destroys opportunities around us or a right opportunity creates opportunities around us. So the point is in this example, guys, is you don't know if she's dead or not. It doesn't matter, but your emotional involvement came from a thought. Now think about that, right? And so when you're fearing something, fearing the market crash, fearing the recession, what are you fearing? A negative outcome that you don't want to have happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So there's nothing to truly fear yet, because what if nothing bad happens? What if we actually get out of this, like the pandemic? People thought it was going to end everything, and then it took off and people's 401ks took off and all this stuff happened, right? So the point is, don't emotionally involve yourself in thoughts unless the thought is accurate. So when you have information come in, it needs to be factual. It needs to be proven. You need to have a way to prove this is real, because if it's an opinion, don't let yourself get emotionally involved in opinion. This is why in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, he says one of the worst things you can do is offer loose opinions to people, because you're giving something that someone else can sink their teeth into that may not be accurate, right? And if you're a leader or you're in business or you're in sales and you're telling people all the time just something because you don't know what to say that's an opinion, you're hurting your business, you're hurting yourself, and you could be hurting that person's future in their life, because they could get emotionally involved in the thought that you're telling them that may actually have no reality, that can cause them to make decisions in their life today that may make a wrong decision that actually causes wrong problems or real problems in the future, which is how people self-manifest the negative things they fear, right? So I hope that kind of helps you guys understand like the power of a thought. Now, here's like how you would get past like understanding fear. Okay. Now the thing that kills fear is data and math and stats and statistics and history. So whenever we're fearful of something, the reason why is because of ignorance. We don't have enough information on what we're talking about or doing. So if you're fearful to put yourself on camera, it's because you don't feel like you have enough information to do it correctly. If you're fearful to start a business, it's because you don't think you have all the skill sets needed. So what do? You go out there and study for years and you become a professional student instead of just starting the business, right? So when we have fear, we need data. And here's an example of how this would work. Imagine Kobe and I are, at the lake, and we're on the cliff. This is an example I give. And I'm looking down over the cliff and I can see the water. It could be 1 foot tall or 1 foot below the bottom. There could be rocks, sharks, anything down there, danger. But it could be 100 foot deep of crystal clear water. I just can't see it. And it could be fun to jump off. Now, the fear is created because of the unknowing, the ignorance, right? We don't know what's underneath the water. You can translate this to any example, right? Now what happens is, let's assume a bunch of people start coming out of the trees and start jumping in and doing backflips and landing down there, and they're jumping all around. You can see clearly there's no problem, and they've been like, this is a complete jump off spot for 1,000 years. There's no rocks, it's 5,000 feet deep, it's completely safe, right? So what happens is the information through studying, knowledge gaining, wisdom, and data, we see that everybody else jumped in front of us, there's no risk anymore. So now we have a faith high enough that if I jump off, I can jump in and have a good time and not crush myself on a bunch of rocks beneath, right? But it's an analogy explaining how fear, thoughts that we're emotionally involved in that don't have reality in the real world, are keeping us from jumping, meaning there's nothing below except there is something in our mind, which is a locking point, which is a emotional attachment to a fearful thought that's not real, if that makes sense. And the way that you get past procrastination and fear is you study. You gain knowledge on the things that you're doing. You find mentors. You consume information on this, right? So if you're scared to talk to people in sales, aggressively study communication, conversation control, influence, right? If you're scared to, get on YouTube, why don't you go watch video marketing classes, body language classes, how to make yourself look better on camera, anything that you can gain as far as knowledge to get you past that fear. But that's kind of a long way of going through this here, but hopefully you now understand that your thoughts control your future. And if you don't control your thoughts, your future is you're going to show up at an uncontrolled or undesigned future. And I don't know about you guys, my undesigned future led me to almost, living at home, what we're talking about led me to a very bad spot, right? So I said, I don't want to have an undesigned future, which is chaos, which is meaning I have no control. I want to design my future. And that's when I understood that I can by the thoughts I create today, which is goal setting and staying on those thoughts. Because now when I think about what I want, I focus on it. And then when I focus on what I want, I move towards it. And when fear comes up in parts of the business that I'm now operating in, I'm aware of it. And so I say, okay, well, now I'm fearful of this, that it's not going to work out. What information do I need to go gain as far as knowledge to get past this fear to take action on this topic? And over time, you do this in and out process with the business that you're building, and then you're not going to have these limitations because you're going to start doing the things that you're fearful of enough through repetition that it becomes ingrained in you and it becomes a habit. And now it's no big deal. You have all these skill sets in business, and after a 2, 3, 5 year run, now you're a successful entrepreneur. Now I made it seem simple in a long run up, but ultimately, I hope you picked out from that how your thoughts can change your emotional state in your body, whether the thought is real or real in the real world or not, and how your emotional state in your body changes your attitude. And your attitude is everything in life because it dictates the people that'll stay in your life. And in a business, especially in a team building business like we do, if you don't have the right attitude, people don't want to be around you.